Welcome. In today's video, we shall look at the concept of factorial. What is factorial? In a simple term, factorial simply means the breaking of a certain number term, and that number term reduces by 1 as it progresses. What do I mean by that? Let's assume we have 4 factorial. 4 factorial implies 4 multiplied by 3, multiplied by 2, and multiplied by 1. As you can see, the 4 factorial, as it continues to progress, is reducing by 1. That means when you subtract 1 from 4, you have 3. When you subtract 1 from 3, you have 2. And when you subtract 1 from 2, you have 1. Okay? And that totals to 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. And 24 times 1 is still 24. Okay? So if we then have 3 factorial, the same sequence follows. And what do I mean by that? 3 factorial means 3 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 1. Okay? Then if I should have 2 factorial, it simply means 2 multiplied by 1. Then if I should have 1 factorial, who can help me? It simply means 1 in itself. Okay? But here lies the problem. If we then have 0 factorial, what is 0 factorial equal? That is what this video is all about. We are going to prove that 0 factorial, we want to prove that 0 factorial is equal to 1. But before I go into the proof, I want to remind you that in factorial, if you don't want to stress yourself in expanding it in this form, you can as well do it this way. For instance, if I have, let me demarcate this. If I have 4 factorial, 4 factorial can also be put as 4 multiplied by 3 factorial. Okay? Because I know that 3 factorial is 3 times 2 times 1. So instead of keep multiplying up to 1, I can end it at 3 factorial. See, if I have 3 factorial, I can still break it as 3 times 2 factorial. Because I know that 2 factorial means 2 times 1. So I can also take this 2 times 1 and fix it here. Okay? And it will still be 3 times 2 times 1. So instead of struggling to break factorials in different series, okay, it's very better or preferred to put it in this way. So if I should have 2 factorial, what is it going to be? It's going to be 2 factorial. Or if you want to break it further, you can say 2 times 1 factorial. And of course, 1 factorial is the same thing as 1. Without just sage, let's go ahead and prove that 0 factorial is equal to 1. The proof is very simple. Let's assume we have x factorial. Okay? X factorial simply means x multiplied by, I'm going to be using dot product for the multiplication, because if I should use cross product like this, the x here, this times is going to look like the x. So I'm going to use dot product for my multiplication here. See, if I have x factorial, it simply means x multiplied by x minus 1. Okay, then factorial. What actually happens here is very simple. Remember, I said that if you have 4 factorial, the 4 is going to be the first heading number. So if we have x factorial, the x is also going to be the first heading number. Then multiplied by x minus 1 means reducing x by 1. Just like here, the next number after 4 is 3, which is a reduction of this 4 by 1. We reduce 4 by 1 to get the 3. So to get the next factorial after x means reducing x by 1. And that is why it says subtracting 1 from x, then factorial. Now let's assume that our x is equal to 1. Remember, we are trying to prove that 0 factorial is 1. Okay? That's what we are trying to prove, that 0 factorial is 1. And when I started with my proof, okay, I say let's assume we have x factorial. which simply means x multiplied by and x reduced by 1 factorial, okay? Then I'm now assuming my x to be 1. That simply means wherever I see x in this given equation, I'm going to replace it by 1, okay? So here I have x factorial, and it's going to be 1 factorial, because I said wherever I see x, I replace it with 1. And that is equal to x is still 1, multiplied by, in bracket, x is 1 minus 1, then factorial. And of course, here we have 1 factorial, and that is equal to, we have 1 point, that is 1 multiplied by 1 minus 1. Now remember that 1 minus 1 now is 0. So we have 0 factorial. Now, when I divide both sides, this is 1 factorial equal to 1 dot in bracket 0 factorial. If I divide both sides of the equation by the coefficient of 0 factorial, which is 1, I will divide both sides by 1. 1 will cancel out 1, and we are left with 1 factorial. We are left with 1 factorial, okay, all over 1, and that is equal to, coming at the right hand side, we are left with 0 factorial. 0 factorial. Now, what is 1 factorial? 1 factorial, according to what we have here, is 1. Okay? So I will replace 1 factorial with 1. Okay? And that is 1 over 1. And that is equal to 0 factorial. So lastly, remember this is 0 factorial, and that is equal to 1 divided by 1 is 1. So finally, we have that our 0 factorial is equal to 1. And that is what we have here, that 0 factorial is equal to 1. So we have proved this, QED. Okay? See you in my next video, and catch you.